Welcome to the Drunk Dietitians podcast, co-hosted by your favorite tipsy registered dietitians, yours truly, Sammy Previtt, co-owner of Dietitians of Palm Valley, and Jenna Warner, owner of Happy Strong Healthy. Us dietitian besties can't stand diet culture bullshit and love keeping it real. Our mission is for all humans to believe that they are made for so much more than chasing a smaller body. We are also here to share with you that food can be fun and pleasurable again. Although we're medical professionals, we are human too. We are not afraid to share our deepest secrets and how years of our lives were taken by diet culture. We started this podcast so no human has to feel alone in their journey towards food freedom. So grab your favorite cocktail and join us for our favorite casual happy hour and expect to laugh, cry, learn, and grow. Cheers.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Drunk Dietitians. I'm smiling. I am so informed. There was so much information shared in this episode, and I'm pumped to share Doc Britt Fit with all of you who just literally saved my life when I found out I was pregnant. She was one of the first people that I told because she posted something literally that day about fitness and pregnancy and this and that, and it would like read my mind after a doctor's appointment I had that like deflated my excitement balloon about the expectations of fitness and pregnancy and the lack of information. And we covered all of that today so that any of you who are thinking about getting pregnant, who might currently be pregnant, who maybe have had children and have questions about this, like Brittany is incredible and a wealth of knowledge on this topic.
Yes, I could not agree more. And just like I said later in the episode, like this is information that we should be learning from the day that we get our period, but nobody talks about, just like when we've had Tracy on here previously and Dr. Stacy and other like gynecologists or dietitians that, you know, specialize in fertility. And so it was so interesting to kind of have this other perspective just specifically about fitness and rest and how to implement it in a way, whether it's pre, postpartum, or during pregnancy, just being able to really take this tactical information and apply it to, again, just like nutrition though, super individualized. Right. So this, you know, this is more educational purposes only, but I still think it's a much needed conversation.
There's just no information on this anywhere. And I think that was really the theme. You know, when I found out that I was pregnant, you know, being a health professional, you think you know things. I worked on the maternity floor in a hospital. Like, I don't know anything, okay? Because we don't learn this stuff. We don't take an interest in it until we need to, maybe, right? And that's super individualized as well. And so I think that just having a reference and a resource, and Brittany shares a bunch of resources that were helpful for her, in addition to her course that will be launched by the time this episode airs, that I'm actually signed up for and thrilled to just get more knowledge from as well. And we could do another episode on pregnancy brain because I can't speak sentences like I used to. So bear with me, people. But that being said, unless you want to share anything else, Sam, I feel like we should just get right into it. So enjoy, everybody. Welcome back, everyone, to Drunk Dietitians. I am so excited. We're smiling, we're laughing. We've had all the internet problems already to go through to ensure that this is going to be the best episode ever, because we have Dr. Brittany Masteller, which I have this written out phonetically, so I didn't mess it up. Did I do that? Here with us. You probably know her as Doc Britt Fit on Instagram. She is a sensation and the best, and I'm going to read her bio straight from her words because it's so perfect. Brittany is an educator, a fitness coach, and a mom of a beautiful 7-month-old baby. She has a PhD in kinesiology and a passion for helping women and families live healthy, and fulfilled lives through evidence-based fitness education. She's basically a unicorn. I added that in. Brittany is a certified pre- and postnatal fitness coach and uses her online platform to spread honest motherhood moments and how to safely approach exercise during and after pregnancy. And I truly mean this, like, you're a unicorn because this information doesn't exist anywhere. So welcome. We're so excited.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. So before we get into any, detailed questions with you, we usually will do a this or that. So just to kind of get to know you a little bit better.
Okay.
So first up, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Perfect. Wine or beer?
Wine.
What kind of wine? I always like to ask, go a little deeper.
I prefer red wine.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Vodka or tequila?
Vodka.
That was a quick answer. Any bad stories with tequila we should know about?
Doesn't everyone have a bad story with tequila?
Everyone except for Sam.
Really?
Only because I didn't drink it in college, so now I can drink it.
And you guys went to Penn State, so
that's it. Brittany's from Belfont.
Oh my gosh! Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. So you understand.
Yeah.
Okay. So Netflix and chill or night out on the town?
Netflix and chill.
Awesome. Snow or sand?
Sand.
Awesome. Crunchy or smooth peanut butter?
Smooth.
Ooh, yes.
This
is a Jenna, I feel like all of the guests that you've invited on choose smooth and I'm smooth and vice versa with crunchy. And then last one here, if you could have anything in the world in limitless quantities, but it can't be money, what would it be and why?
Time.
I love that.
That's a perfect answer.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. You
very
can go
abstract.
philosophical with it. It doesn't have to be literal.
My other option was going to be athleisure wear.
Yes.
I would be with you on that one as well.
That is very on brand of you. Both. Yeah.
So before we get into some really amazing stuff, can you share with all of our listeners just a little bit more about you and what brought you into this very specific specialty or niche that is really untapped?
Yeah. So I was pregnant with my first baby, and I've been into fitness for years, for over a decade. My degrees are in exercise science, and I've been in the fitness world for a long time, but before I was pregnant, I never really looked for fitness information that was related to pregnancy. There's even in like personal training certifications and stuff, unless you get a specialty certification, there's very little covered in general, which was astounding to me when I became pregnant because I had so many questions. So I compete in bodybuilding, I compete in strongman, and when I got pregnant, I had just been prepping for a strongman competition. So I actually did a strongman competition pregnant before I knew. And then I was so freaked out. I was like, what am I allowed to do? What is safe? Like, did that hurt the baby? And meanwhile, I was like 2 weeks pregnant. It was fine. But, yeah, I had so many questions. And then when I went to my doctor, she was basically like, just continue doing what you're doing. And I was like, do you know what strongman is? Like, I don't really think that is okay. Like, I actually don't think that's good advice. I mean, I'm slamming implements up against my body. Like, she just had no really idea about exercise, which now looking back, I understand that it's not, not all doctors do. She was very positive and like wanted me to continue exercising, but really didn't have any advice for me. So, and the more I looked around, the more I realized like everyone I knew in fitness didn't really know anything about training pregnant women. Like, they basically were just modifying what they were doing. And that's okay to an extent, but if that's all you're doing with no real knowledge of what happens to your body during pregnancy, you're really doing a disservice to the people you're training. So, long story short, I ended up getting, I went through the Girls Gone Strong, which I highly recommend if anyone's interested in a pre and postnatal certification. They have an amazing certification that, you know, their board is full of OBGYNs, fitness professionals, like very qualified people, pelvic floor physical therapists, things like that. So I did my certification through them while I was pregnant. And just kind of the rest is history, I guess, because I just realized that, you know, I had just started my Doc Britt Fit account about a year ago, and I, you know, sought out some accounts, and now I've found a lot more. But before really like seeking them out, the only thing I saw was, you know, pregnant, like fitness influencers who got pregnant posting what they did. That was really the extent of it. But I had no idea like why they were doing it. Like, is it safe for me to do that? Like, there was no education behind it. So now that I found some more accounts and had the education myself, I'm like, this needs to be more talked about if we really want to advance, you know, the world of pregnancy and postpartum fitness, because it's not so in your face that it's easy to find. You have to really search for it.
The only thing you see is hashtag fit pregnancy or fit mom or whatever it is, which is fine, but you don't know who these people are, right? Or like what their information is. And you actually posted this, I think either today or yesterday, just because a fitness influencer is pregnant or postpartum and exercising a certain way does not mean they know how to instruct you to exercise safely. Like, that's such a huge point.
And that's true of, you know, any fitness influencer, but especially when you're pregnant and postpartum, like it's fine to share information, but you know, if you're not qualified to be instructing someone else, and you don't know a lot of the things in pregnancy that happen or postpartum because they didn't happen to you, and that's the only thing you're going by is your own personal experience, you're doing a disservice to everyone. So yeah, I really believe that. And a lot of that is because that was the only thing I saw before was, you know, these accounts with hundreds of thousands and millions of followers who are just posting their workouts that they're doing when they're pregnant. And I'm sure other people who are pregnant then are like, oh, this fitness influencer like is doing this. Like, I'm just going to do what they do, which might be okay, but it might not be okay. And there's no like reasoning behind it if you're just showing what you're doing and not educating with that. So
my brain is like flooding. Sam, do you want to go first?
Well, I feel like I love having fitness professionals on our podcast because so much of it parallels with diet culture, right? Because it's the same thing as a fashion influencer showing us what she eats in a day and telling other people to eat that way. Like, no, honey, like we aren't doing that here. And then also just thinking about diet culture and the messages for pregnant or postpartum. So many of my clients, right, you're inundated with how to get your body back. We should not be focusing on how to get our body back. We just had a baby. Like, that's such an amazing, strong, beautiful thing. And your body will never be the same after what it just went through. It just carried a child. So, I mean, I have your Instagram pulled up here, and the one that really stuck out to me, it's a beautiful picture of you, and it says, pregnant and postpartum women deserve communities that prioritize real issues and not how to avoid stretch marks, which were literally something that was made up by the beauty industry. I had just posted that the other day as a air quotes problem. Right? So I'm so happy that we have you on here, because I think it needs to be heard by so many.
I mean, I've sensed that. And I think, you know, I still post a lot about pregnancy, even though I'm no longer pregnant, but I'm in the postpartum part, and the amount of messaging that's sent, that's, you know, like you said, lose the baby weight, you know, all those things that honestly just don't really matter that much when you're, at least in my experience, and I think a lot of other mothers experience this as well and just haven't talked about it as openly. But you know, there's a lot of things about new motherhood for me that far take precedence over, you know, stretch marks and, you know, other weight and dieting. Like, it just, I just feel like this is not the time. And I've posted that before. I said, like, at the beginning of the year, I posted how, like, I'm not dieting or anything this year at all. Like, 2020, no dieting from me. And it was like my most shared post, most like engaged post ever. And it was just a picture of my belly and my like newborn's legs hanging over it. And it was just talking about how this before, sometimes even before you have the baby, people are already like, what are you going to do to lose the baby weight? And there's so many things wrong with that. And I just, it makes me so angry. I'm like, oh, why?
It's diet culture.
Yeah.
It's diet culture. That's all it is.
Yeah.
There's you saying this message, and then you have these influencers talking about how they're going to fix their hormones after giving birth because that's why they can't lose their weight. Like, or maybe you just had a baby and your priorities have changed. Like, come on. It's so hard. I mean, there are things too. I don't know if it's something that you've experienced, but I mean, thinking too about just like the changes in your body that your body goes through, and like you're experiencing this firsthand for the first time, and you have people saying to you like, oh, but it's so beautiful, you're creating life. But on the inside, you're feeling like, what the fuck is happening inside my body?
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like, that's also something that I feel like nobody talks about.
Yeah. I'm pretty open about the fact that I did not love being pregnant. I didn't have a particularly bad experience as far as like symptoms and stuff like that, but I felt really limited to what I could do physically, and you don't feel like yourself completely, obviously, because you're growing life, which, like you said, it's a very beautiful thing, but at the same time, there's a lot of duality in your emotions there, because you can be very, very grateful and happy that you're bringing life into the world, and also be very uncomfortable and anxious, and you can experience both. Yep. And only one gets talked about. So then you start feeling like, why do I feel like this? Is there something wrong with me that I am not like, not all rainbows and butterflies for me? And I don't think that's the case. I think a lot of women just feel pressure to, just basically, shut up and be happy because you're pregnant. And there's a lot of components there. There's a lot of things to think about. And that's something else that I just did not know before I got pregnant. And I have a ton of pregnant friends, and, I just felt like I was rethinking everything. Like, when they were pregnant or when they've done things, I'm just like thinking back, and I'm like, oh my God, like, you did that when you were pregnant? Like, how did you do that? Or like, like, how did you listen to my stupid stories when you had, you know what I mean? It was just like, oh man, I was really ignorant to like what this really was. And so it was a lot of learning and a lot of unlearning, I guess, too.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to drop a huge bomb right now, because the reason I connected so much with Doc Britt Fit, I feel like we're not calling you Dr. Brittany right now, so I'm going to say that, is, so I am currently 10 weeks pregnant, and I saw Brittany's post about her course for prenatal fitness. And the moment I found out, I mean, I'm an active person, I had a page full of questions about what I can do, what about my heart rate, what's right, what's wrong, like all of these things. And there was every post I found on the websites that I was searching contradicted itself. Nothing against my doctor, but on my appointment to confirm that I was pregnant, my doctor said, just don't do anything new. And I was like, but I've technically done everything. So what does that mean? And then he said, don't get breathless. And so now I'm working out, and I'm like, am I breathless? What's my heart rate? Like, freaking out and adding more stress to myself. And so I reached out to Brittany, and I was like, when is this course coming? I'm signing up. And oh, by the way, can I talk to you? Because like, there's no one to talk to about these topics. Nobody gets it. And I mean, it's just, it's such a shame that there's no space to find, you know, valid information. But that's why I'm so grateful that, you know, we now have a safe place to refer people to, because you are such a gift. I mean, like, there's literally no information on this.
It's really, I mean, I've found, you know, some great accounts, and I can share those with you too. I don't know if you guys have like show notes or anything, but I have like some, especially like pelvic floor physical therapists post a lot about pregnancy and postpartum. They're very reputable. I have a couple of friends who do coach women like one-on-one. I don't do one-on-one coaching. Like, my new program is like a group coaching program, but because it is so hard, so I like to have those like accounts ready to give people, because if you really are interested in learning, or you become pregnant and you want to like read all of the things, I want people to be reading things that are evidence-based and not, you know, some random, you know, blog that anyone could have written, you know. So yeah, no, I'm happy to, you know, continue to spread more awareness for this. It's funny because now that I'm so in it, I feel like a lot of the people in my circle do talk about it, because that's the circle that I'm in, right? But then I'll talk to someone who's not in the world of fitness, or maybe not even on Instagram really, and it's still very much not talked about. So yeah, I think it's really important.
Well, I feel like we should just use this as, since I am not pregnant and I have not declared a child, I feel like we should use this as a personal consultation for Jenna. Because Jenna, you have your list of questions, I'm sure, ready to rapid fire. And then I just think that would be such a great use of time.
I just think it's so, I just think it's so interesting, right? So there's a bunch of different things, and what you said about the duality of emotions is so real. And I actually just signed up for supervision with a body image physical mental health coach. What is the title? She's a body image therapist. And so I was in a course with her last week, and she was talking about that same idea, that we can have a positive and negative thought competing in our brain at the same time, which, until you just said that about what's happening in my body right now, it's like so real that just gives me so much like validation. So thank you for that. But the truth of the matter is like, what does it mean don't do anything new? And like, what does it mean? I mean, as far as being breathless, like, I get that. But as your body changes and goes through these changes, I mean, I have hip pain. I'm only 10 weeks, okay? I have hip pain that I've never had before. And my husband, who's a yoga instructor or teacher, he's like, well, from what I've read, you know, your hips are doing blow. And I'm like, but what, like now? Like right now? Like, I don't even understand. And so I don't even know where to go and read some of that information. So that question was about 15 questions, but my real question is, what does it mean when, you know, you start the process of understanding your body in pregnancy? What is safe, air quotes?
Yeah. So, the recommendation of not to do anything new, I think, is slightly outdated and sometimes misused, because depending on the person, that may or may not be true. So I think about, you know, not you necessarily, Jenna, but someone else who maybe didn't participate in any physical activity before they got pregnant. It used to be said, like, pregnancy is not the time to start being physically active. And that has since been, you know, that statement has gone out the window, because now we know that any amount of physical activity, even starting during pregnancy, as long as it's, you know, an appropriate volume and an appropriate exercise, is still going to be beneficial. So I think that recommendation more so comes from that. So it's the same thing when you start a regular fitness journey. If you go from not being active at all and then go into a super high intensity group training class, that's like going from 0 to 150 miles per hour in a second. So, you know, we want to avoid the extremes, I would say. As far as not doing anything new, I would say mode of exercise, that might be what people refer to, but I even think that that's not necessarily true, because if you weren't strength training before you were pregnant and you're incorporating it, I would encourage people to incorporate it while they're pregnant. It can be totally safe to do so, but you aren't going to be maxing out your deadlift. So it kind of exists on a continuum, I guess. And I think that's one reason why doctors have a lot of trouble giving recommendations, because you can't use the same recommendation for everyone. And if you're a doctor who is unfamiliar with exercise, which it can be kind of outside of their scope of practice, then they may not have good advice for you, which is why I think, like, after that whole thing happened and I was pregnant, when I got my certification, I brought my business cards to my midwife's office, because if people have questions, I want them to be able to be like, you know, this is kind of outside of my scope of practice, but like, here is someone who specializes in this, who is a trainer, who can answer all of your questions. So, it's really individualized, to make a long story short, but that's kind of where that recommendation came from, is that it used to be considered unsafe.
It makes sense too. And it's funny because I used to work out in a group fitness setting, and one of the women that I worked out with, who's amazing, she was pregnant with her second, and she knew, or she was like known in this space as like, she ran like a sprint on the treadmill and then like gave birth like 4 hours later. Like, that was like her birthing story. And so I think about that, because that was really my only exposure to like fitness and pregnancy. And I was telling Brittany this before, like, I went for a run yesterday, like normal pace, very slow. And I'm like watching my heart rate. I'm like, am I breathless? Oh my God, I'm stealing air from the baby. Like, what is happening? Having like a full-blown panic. I call my mom in hysterics, and she's like, it's really nice that you're thinking about like for two right now, like whether you realize it or not, like you're not just putting your own needs first. And I was like, does that make me selfish before? Like, I was like beyond. The emotions and hormones are just out of control.
The thinking about, you know, feeling selfish, or I totally get that. I experienced that as well. And the breathlessness is a symptom of pregnancy, obviously.
Oh my God.
So yeah, I was just saying, I teach an online class, and in the fall, when I was due in November, so I was like 8 months pregnant-ish when I was recording all of my online lectures, and I'd listened to one back like in the spring, and I'm like, I remember recording them and getting like out of breath talking.
I feel right now.
And it's so hard. It's really hard. So I think everyone experiences that differently. And yes, you want to avoid that like exercise induced breathlessness, because that normal like having difficulty breathing and stuff happens. And then if you place, you know, some form of exercise on top of that, where your body is working at a higher capacity, that you want to avoid. But that might change even day to day. Like, something might be fine, and then you might go up the stairs and be like, oh my God, like, you know? So, and I, you know, one of the things that I heard a lot was just like, listen to your body.
Right.
That was the advice. And I'm like,
such bullshit.
Yeah, I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? I don't understand what that means, because to me, I'm used to training at a really high intensity. I'm used to training really hard. If it were up to me to just listen to my body, like, I would push past the limit to which I should. And I definitely like flirted with that a couple of times when I was pregnant, before I got my certification and like knew more about what intensity to be training at. So Jenna, you mentioned like measuring heart rate. Yeah. And one of the things that they talk about in the certification that I took is using RPE, so the rating of perceived exertion. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's basically a scale from 1 to 10, and 10 being like, I could not do any more of this, and 1 being extremely easy. And when you're pregnant, you really don't want to be going more than like a 6 or a 7. Okay. And if I would have known that earlier, it would have helped me so much, because that's how I'm used to judging the difficulty of my training, especially with lifting, because I knew lifting was safe and everything. Like, obviously, once you get past a certain point, certain movements are unsafe, just because you could physically like hit your belly. But certainly operating at an intensity that's, not maxing out, but that's still hard. An RPE of 6 to 7 is still like not easy. I'd say it's like moderately hard. I think, getting information like that out there to like help women understand what intensity they should be operating at should be really helpful, because listening to your body can be it can be helpful sometimes for people who are in tune with their body, but for women who are just kind of learning that as a part of pregnancy and they're new to exercise, like there are a lot of factors, right? So it doesn't work for everyone to just be like, oh, just listen to your body, because like we already talked about, there are so many like factors there. Anxiety and fear and all those things come into play as well.
And like, let's just not forget to mention that your food intake is really not normal during these first couple weeks.
Yeah.
Like, I literally have been living off of dairy and carbs.
Yeah.
Like nothing tastes better than pizza, mac and cheese, melted cheese on anything. Like that is what stays down too. So from an energy perspective of like quick energy, sure, I have plenty of carbs, but I'm not having like staying power right now.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of protein happening.
No. And I said that to you. I had a really bad aversion to pretty much every protein source that I would normally eat. Was like made me want to vomit. So like my protein intake was like just, and so that affects your, there are so many things. So I ate a lot of cottage cheese because I could down that.
Yes, I like,
and
that
had protein
right now too.
like I still can't eat chicken. I said that I like still can't really eat chicken breast. And I used to eat that, multiple times a week. So I just and everyone experiences that differently. I have friends who never had any type of sickness, any aversions, nothing. They just were basically like felt pretty normal their entire pregnancy. And that happens. Not to me, but it does happen.
Hopefully for you, Sam. That could be.
Yeah, Sam, maybe you'll be one
for you.
Yeah.
We'll knock on wood. Maybe I'll get lucky.
Yeah.
But I love this conversation because I was talking with a friend this weekend who they have an 11-month-old, and she was just sharing, being a new mom and everything that comes along with it. And we were laughing about how like when we go to college and when we like learn things specifically, and I think Jenna might agree with this with our career. And I know for you, Brittany, like you're like, I didn't have this information and I was a trainer. Like we don't learn what we need to get us through life. Never, like right now, every single thing that I'm doing for my career, none of it was taught to me in college. Like zero, like literally zero. If anyone goes back and listens to episode 1 of Jenna and I's college experience, as you said, Brittany with Penn State, that's pretty much all we learned.
Yeah.
So I think about that same thing, like, as for women who decide that they want to have children at some point in their life, whether it's if we have a lot of listeners who aren't pregnant but are saying like someday I want kids, like this information is so pertinent and it's so important because nobody, like that's been like a theme of this episode, that nobody talks about this. And like this is stuff we should have been learning for years. So when you get pregnant, you don't have to ask your 80-year-old male doctor what you should be doing. And he looks at you like those answers that you said, Jenna, right? Like this should be something that we know. That's just kind of where my head is at with all of this. It's so great to be able to have all these resources from you and be able to point people to your page, to your course, to your website, where like people should be learning about this from like when we get our period, right? Like why do we get our period? And then what's that end goal if it's having kids, and everywhere in between.
Yeah.
You have phases too. So Brittany has prenatal, postpartum, and then fit for life. Like for the busy mom aspect, like I can't even imagine what that phase is going to look like. And I mean, just to know that there's like a progression there and, a way to have resources throughout it all is so invaluable. And I mean, the amount of misinformation out there too, or people's personal experiences that have now been shared as facts is crazy. I was eating, there was that first like week or so that I had found out before I went to the doctor to get the confirmation, I couldn't stomach anything. I was eating a ton of frozen fruit because it was hot and it felt good. And I was eating frozen pineapple by like the cup. And my mom texted me and she was like, don't eat pineapple. There's bromelain in it and it can cause stillbirth. And I was like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. Like that's all I'm eating. So I'm like Google searching everything thing. Like, what do you mean? I worked on the maternity floor in a hospital for 9 months. I've never heard this before. And I found one article that was like, in serious cases where you eat like 14,000 pounds of pineapple, like, yeah, like the problem. But like, this is the information. I was literally taking a bite out of the pineapple as I'm reading this.
Oh yeah.
Just so insane. And then the only other thing that I was thinking about as you were talking before is like my doctor telling me not to run in the second and third trimesters because you don't want the baby to like, it's just not great, right? But I run all the time normally. And then I think about the only other education I have, please don't judge me, is like Sex in the City when she finally gets pregnant and she's like, but your doctor said you're a runner and you should run. Like, all of this competing information is just insane.
Yeah. I think, you know, it's hard. It's good to have like pointed sources that you can go to find out some of this stuff because of that. And I think too, there's, in my experience, a lot of, because I'm a competitive bodybuilder, I compete in, you know, athletic things. So I follow a lot of athletes. And the other end of this is doing everything as normal. So training at the intensity that you were before you got pregnant because it's like a badge of honor or something. Like, I want to maintain this amount of strength or whatever while pregnant, as almost, and that's more of like an ego driven thing. And that is also unsafe. So, you know, I want people to exercise during pregnancy, but I want them to do it safely. That means like, no, you shouldn't be doing barbell cleans, bringing a barbell right up your body whenever you're 9 months pregnant, because that's not safe. The barbell could smack your belly and cause damage. Do you know what I mean? So I've seen it go both ways. People over exercising and wanting to just keep doing what they're doing while pregnant. And I actually, when I posted that, what you shared earlier about like not just blindly following pregnant fitness influencers, someone messaged me basically saying like, you know, they're a fitness enthusiast and, you know, they like that exercising during pregnancy is more out there in the world because then people know that it's safe. And, you know, I got a lot of shit for exercising when I was pregnant because people didn't think it was safe. And it may have been, but if you were exercising when you were pregnant and doing things that you shouldn't be doing, that's still a disservice to pregnant women because they're going to think that that is okay, when really it was okay for you because nothing bad happened, but that's not the recommendation based on the evidence. So, you know, I just like to say that too, because it goes both ways and I've seen it go both ways. And I think we just have to be careful because one, not everyone is an athlete. Not everyone is, you know, competing in CrossFit. Like I see it a lot with CrossFit athletes, I think, because I don't know, I just feel like CrossFit's really popular. So I see a lot of pregnant women continuing to do CrossFit and be like, this is safe. And yes, it is safe to an extent, but there are still things you want to be aware of no matter what you're doing when you're exercising, when you're pregnant, or, you know, right after you had a baby, when you're early postpartum.
So we're talking a lot about, of course, exercise with pregnancy. What are your recommendations on rest with pregnancy?
Oh, that's a good question.
I think I know this is a nuanced saying, but the listen to your body thing is going to be really important so this is how I program for the Busy Mom Blueprint, because it varies a lot. So for the prenatal program, I have 2 full body strength days per week. They're both full body so that if you want to do more, you can do one of the days twice. But if you're having a bad week when you just feel like shit and all you're doing is throwing up and you just don't feel like exercising, it's not a big deal if you just do 1 week or you miss it. So there has to be some flexibility in there, I think. I do think like white knuckling your way through pregnancy and being like, I have to work out when you don't really feel like it's benefiting you, or if you feel really nervous and you're like, I would just feel more comfortable if I, didn't do anything like this until I have my 12-week ultrasound or whatever. It's really going to depend on what the person, I can give recommendations, but at the end of the day, I always like to tell people, like, it really is up to you, but you should be aware of, the benefits. You should be aware of everything that could happen, because certainly even keeping up with cardiovascular training during pregnancy is important. So going for, running while you still can, walking even. I know a lot of women find walking to be very beneficial, and walking gets a little bit tougher once you have more of a belly. So I'm not a big runner, so I didn't run a lot, but I did walk a lot when I was pregnant, or rode the bike or whatever. And then at a certain point, it just became really uncomfortable. But I really do think it's up to the person and how they're feeling. So in my program, I give those options and guide you with doing exercises safely, because there are things that you want to look out for as you get further into your pregnancy that would be contraindications for exercising. So any type of bleeding from exercising, heavy bleeding, there are a number of things, and certain women have conditions that medically from their doctor they're told it's no longer safe to exercise. So it's going to vary widely, but by and large, strength training multiple times per week, at least twice per week, 2 to 4 days is what's recommended. Continuing cardiovascular training, pelvic floor exercises, which I had never even heard of that before. Same. I was pregnant. And it's like the most important thing, and I had never even heard of it. I was like, why? Because everyone told me, like, oh, after you have a baby, you just pee yourself. Like, that is just what happens, and it's, that's part of being a mom. You sneeze, you pee, you run, you pee. That's just like how it is. And I was like, that cannot be true. Like, that just, but it's so accepted in culture. I mean, it's so, like, I feel like people who are our mom's age, who are older, that is just kind of like an accepted thing. Like, oh yeah, like, I had 3 babies, so I pee myself. And it doesn't have to be like that. And I was like, oh my God, I knew that it didn't have to be like that. And it doesn't. There are physical therapists who specifically focus on rehabbing your pelvic floor and, addressing urinary incontinence, which is what that is. And if you want to fix it, which not everyone does, but I was like, I'd rather not be myself, thank you. There are things that you can do to prevent that, and if it does happen to you, to address it. You aren't destined to a life of peeing your pants.
Of never jumping rope ever again.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I've trained people. I mean, I've trained tons of people over the years, and I just never got it. I was like, oh, that really just must be a thing, because everyone said that to me, so I didn't really question it. They would avoid jumping or jumping rope or jumping jacks or whatever because they had kids. And I was like, oh, like, wow, that really sucks. But I had no idea. I was like, I was just ignorant. So, now I'm like, no, like, and I think I've gotten like 3 or 4 of my friends and my sister who have had babies to go to see a pelvic floor physical therapist because of some sort of pelvic floor issue that otherwise they just would have probably lived with that forever. Like, when my sister went to see her doctor to check for pelvic organ prolapse, because she was describing her symptoms to me, and I was like, I think you need a second opinion. I think you need to go to another doctor, because I'm pretty certain that you have pelvic organ prolapse. And there's different grades of that, but she did. And when she went with a family member, and when she was sitting there describing her symptoms to the doctor and stuff, my family member was like, I experienced all that too. She was like 50 something, my aunt who was with her. So she's been living with that since she had her kid when she was 20 something, and just accepted that as that's the way it is. And as long as you're making an informed decision, like, I'm all about autonomy, but not knowing that that's not how it has to be is a problem. So I think just, you know, telling people that, because it is a kind of like, oh, like pelvic organ prolapse. It's not like sexy, but I mean, it's a real thing, and it affects exercise. It affects your day-to-day life. It affects, you know, your sexual experiences. It affects so many things that are important, and to not talk about it does a serious disservice to women. So I think just having conversations with your friends about some of this stuff, and like that, all my friends always send me like all the funny like things about pelvic floor and stuff. And I love that that's my reputation now, is like I talk about the pelvic floor health, but I think it's so important, and none of my friends talked about that.
I literally haven't heard of it until, I mean, before this conversation, but not that much before this conversation.
Yeah.
And, I mean, let's just like call a spade a spade. Labor's got to be an athletic event.
Yeah. There are. So I actually, my son was 10 days late.
Oh my goodness.
So I was actually induced, and I ended up getting a C-section, but I was in labor for almost 48 hours. And then when I wasn't progressing, had a C-section. But yeah, it's something. A friend of mine actually has
You're a superhero.
Yeah, it's something. I mean, I was really scared about the labor part. I know some women like that, like kind of varies. I was really terrified because I was nervous about having to get a C-section. And I did have to get a C-section. So in the end, I was like, well, it was right. I was rightfully nervous because that was my like worst fear confirmed. But yeah, so I think, you know, I did all the things, all of the bouncing and all that stuff to like prepare. But at the end of the day, I think, you know, that's what needed to happen. I had to get a C-section, and it is what it is. But I think, you know, if and when I have another child, I do think that I would do the same things again. I think prepping for birth is still important. Like if I hadn't done that and then still gone through everything that I did, I don't think I would have handled it as well physically, for sure. And I do know a couple of friends who have like entire like courses I can send you, Jenna, about you know, during pregnancy, how to prepare physically for birth. And that's fantastic. I wish I would have had that before.
I'm so grateful.
Yeah, I wish I would have. She just came out with it like last month, but I'm like, man, if I would have had this before I had Benji, I would have been so grateful. But definitely next time, I bought the course for a friend that's pregnant and gave it to her because
send me that info so I can buy it.
yeah, she specializes in, you know, pelvic floor health and preparing the body for pregnancy and healing postpartum as well. So
if you want to say it now, you're more than welcome to, and then we can put it in the show notes too.
Yeah, so it's my friend Julie. Her Instagram handle is @StrongBodyStrongMama, MAMA. Okay. And she has a degree in exercise science as well, and posts a lot of great information about that. So yeah, the other account that I recommend is Expecting and Empowered. And that's an education account. That's not a person. I mean, it's two sisters who run it. One is a physical therapist, but that is not an influencer necessarily. It's just education. Yeah. So I think people enjoy both, right? Because I think, you know, me personally, I post a lot of information, but I also post like, you know, how does this look in real life? Because after you have a baby too, one of the recommendations is, you know, so you'll hear from your doctor again. They'll be like, okay, it's been 6 weeks, like you're cleared to exercise.
I can't even imagine that.
That's it. That's it. That's the only information you get. And for me, they didn't do the only thing they looked at was my C-section scar. And for me at 6 weeks, it wasn't quite healed. So they wanted me to wait and come back. So, you know, I ended up going back at like 8 and 10 weeks and then was, you know, allowed to start exercising again. But I still didn't really like, that's all. The only thing that happened was time. They had, no like I mean, there's so much going on then, mentally, emotionally, physically.
The baby's
and
like attached to you at 6 weeks. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah. And like, what do you do? And then, so it's technically safe to start easing back in, but what I've seen some, women do is at 6 weeks, they just start like back to exercising how they were before they were pregnant. And that can be really dangerous as well, because your body is still healing. Right. So doing a lot of high impact, high intensity exercise really early in that postpartum period can, maybe not immediately, but sometimes down the line can, have serious implications physically. We see that a lot with running. So the recommendation for running is, a lot of experts recommend not trying to run until you're at least 3 months postpartum, which would be closer to 12 weeks versus 6. So it's literally double the amount of time, So, yeah. So there's a lot of.
You can have sex after 6 weeks too, which to me, I just can't imagine that being on the forefront.
Yeah. And that's the same thing. And exactly. There are so many factors. Like physically, yeah, it might be like quote unquote safe, but it took me a lot longer to feel like I wanted to do that personally. And with anything, there were just, and same with working out. Like I was like, I want to work out to like feel empowered and feel energized. But when you're not sleeping, you may or may not be eating well or regularly. Like for me, it was when my partner went back to work, it was really hard to take care of the baby and take care of myself. So I know I wasn't eating enough because I was like scrambling throughout the day trying to feed him and trying to make food. Like it was so hard. So like you're not sleeping, you're not eating, you just had a baby and you're like, how the hell do I do this? And then you're going to add another stressor of exercising. And then a lot of women are also trying to lose weight. So it's just so hard on your body and for so many different reasons. So that's why I was so like strongly like, I am not worrying about dieting. Like that is not top of the priorities right now. Like
this is a conversation every female, whoever is thinking about getting pregnant, needs to hear.
And I'm definitely met with some resistance with that. Like that's not the popular thing to say. It's very much still more popular to say, I want to lose this baby weight. Like I need to get this off by X date. Like, and I don't agree with that. And I feel like I'm like yelling to an abyss. Like I feel like I'm saying, I mean, you guys know, because you talk about this as far for dieting. I feel like I'm yelling into the abyss and like no one's really listening to me yet. But I hope that if we all keep doing that, eventually people will be like, oh, it doesn't have to be like this. Oh, really? I didn't know there was another way. Like, it's so.
Well, you hit the nail on the head where you're saying, postpartum, you're not sleeping, you're not eating, right? Self-care is down. If you try to add exercise component, the stress management, all of that, right? Weight, for anybody listening, weight is not a behavior, period. Doesn't matter if you're pregnant, doesn't matter if you're a man, doesn't matter if you're a woman, transgender, whoever you are, weight is not a behavior. So when we're saying we're not, like, you don't need to focus on your weight, like you said, full right to body autonomy. People, you have the right to want whatever you want. But when we're saying to not focus on weight loss, we have your health at our best interest, because you can focus on behavior changes, whether it's mental, physical, emotional, and those things will honor your body and help your body recover more than any diet or any quick fix weight loss plan, where it'll probably end up spiraling you back to gaining more weight than you originally lost.
Yeah. So. And I think, whenever I created the wait list for my program that I'm launching, I included in the email a video of me kind of explaining what it was. And I was very clear that, this is not a, postpartum weight loss competition challenge. This is not that. I think, exercise can be separate from weight loss, and this is to help you resume exercise safely and to do things safely. If you want to on your own choose that weight loss is a goal of yours, that I can't make you choose what you want, right? I can't, autonomy. However, my job is to promote the exercise part. This is not as a means to lose weight. This is to gain your strength back, to be able to hold your baby without getting sore, to walk around the house without your body aching. You know, though that is my goal with this. And I just tried to make that very clear, because I know that some women, before they even give birth, are already feeling the pressure to do that. And it's just not helpful. I think it just causes more stress. And so there's a way to solely incorporate exercise safely, you know, moderate amount of exercise, because a lot of women are still breastfeeding, which exercise can impact that as well. So, you know, there are a lot of things to consider, but I think that pregnancy and postpartum is the perfect opportunity to help women learn that exercise is not only a tool for weight loss. Because, I mean, especially during pregnancy, most women are just trying to be healthy for their baby. So, you know, that's a great time to learn more about yourself and kind of your intentions behind everything. I know for me, it was huge.
Yeah.
So I just, you know, hope to help other women do that as well, learn that as well.
So I love this so much. I'm on the wait list right now, and I will be traveling through all 3 of your courses for sure. But tell our listeners who maybe are in any phase of those journeys or that journey, where they can find you, this information, and this course, which I'm super excited about. I will be your biggest fan once I announce, or your biggest promoter.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. So.
Sorry.
So I hang out on Instagram the most. So at DocBrittFit, and the links to join the waitlist and the links to join the program of everything are all in my Instagram bio. So all the information you need is there. I am launching it this week, and I'll launch, and enrollment will be, you know, announced for the next round as well. So if you're interested, I don't know when this exactly is launching, but the wait list will always be open. If there aren't any current spots, you can get on the wait list, and when spots do open up, I'll shoot you an email.
I'm so excited. I think we'll launch, I think that this is totally off topic, and we could talk about this another time, Sam, in another episode, maybe just me and you, but the anxiety about this first month and, you know, the so much unknown is just really crazy. And so provided all goes well, I have an appointment with the nuchal testing in 2 weeks. And then after that is my plan to share it, so I can stop hiding from all my friends and family. They're like, want to hang out? I'm like, no.
I'm so thrilled for you. I'm so excited for you.
Oh, thank you so much. I seriously cannot wait to start your program. And like, you were that small conversation we had in the DMs, like, you don't know how much that meant to me. And I was like at a super low where I hadn't told anybody except for my mom and my husband, obviously. And it was like to just be able to like share that I haven't eaten protein in 7 days and like have someone get it and make me feel so much better about it. Like, you have no idea what that meant to me. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're so welcome.
I'm just so excited.
Thank you guys for having me. It was so fun to chat.
Guys, thank you so much for listening and being here with us. I am virtually cheersing all of you. We absolutely loved sipping on a cocktail with you and sharing as many nutrition tipsies as possible during this episode. We know there are a ton of pods out there, and we are so appreciative of your time that you spent listening to us today. Please be sure to check out the show notes for episode details and all of our guest information. We promise to keep bringing you the best and the most knowledgeable and fun guests we possibly can. Please be sure to subscribe, like, share, and post if you enjoyed our content today. And visit us on Instagram and Facebook at Drunk Dietitians to find out what is up next for us on the pod. We absolutely love you. We appreciate you and can't wait to spend more time cheersing with you soon.